Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to a brand new episode of Kaiju Conversation. I'm your host, Elijah, and joining me as always, the great, wonderful, and beautiful Rex.
Hello, it's been a little bit since the last recording, I'd say.
I mean, yes, but also
Not as long as last time, to be fair.
Yeah, to be honest, I was thinking about this, and it was like, the last time we said that we were going to hold off, but get back to it, we didn't. Until like a year later. So I was like, I really hope that I don't say that and that happen again. But that didn't happen again because we're here. Again.
These things happen, but sometimes they don't.
This is true. This is very true. So we're back. It's been a little bit, like you said. We were supposed to have an episode in August, but because of scheduling, like, I just got promoted at my job, so, like, I work 50 hours a week, and I manage a whole store. Well, not a whole store, but, like, a whole department. So, like, I'm busy. I'm very busy. And Rex has a job now.
Yes. Unfortunately.
He's not as high profile as me, obviously, but, you know.
Yeah, shut the Oh, wait. I forget, I can't swear.
Besides that, I guess we can do a quick rundown of what we've been doing since the bonus episode, and then we've got a mailbag question to read out.
Oh, interesting.
Well, I mean, we've already talked about it, but I said we would read it again in the next episode. So
this is what happens when we're like, what is it, like 2 months apart from the last recording, was it? Is that
so it's been 2 months since the last episode. It's been a month since the last bonus episode. So
yeah, but like at least a month and a half since the recording or so.
Yeah. Thankfully, though, we did answer. I guess we're going to do the mailbag question first.
Sure.
Let me pull up the email real quick. This is what happens when you're not 100% ready to go.
And this is what we call the magic of editing.
The magic of editing. Okay. So we got an email from Doug. I'm not going to butcher his last name again. Doug, he emailed us, what happened at G-Fest this year? Get anything good? And he sent us a cool photo of Mechagodzilla 2, the 1975 version, his Bandai, and a really awesome photo of his room. We went into great detail, Doug, on a bonus episode where we talked about my experience at G-Fest and Rex's experience trying to find the film set of Godzilla vs. Kong sequel. What I'm titling now, Godzilla and Kong: The Battle for Earth.
Of course you would.
I mean, it's going to be as bad as Godzilla and Mothra: The Battle for Earth. Might as well name it after it.
Well, I can't argue with that.
I guess we can start off with if we've seen any new movies since our last recording. Talk about that very briefly because we'll probably talk about the films eventually on the podcast.
I mean, we've got a film lined up for this recording as well.
This is true, and we will get to that one very, very soon. So, what have you seen? Anything of interest?
Last recording, I'd seen Invasion of the Astro Monster, I think, last time we recorded. Or was I coming off that?
It was from the theater, yeah.
Yeah. I haven't seen too much in terms of Tokusatsu recently. I've kind of just been watching movies on and off here and there. Let's see. On my list, it says, after Invasion of Astro Monster, I saw Takashi Miike's First Love, which was all right. It was a bit standard, I guess, for Miike. Just unremarkable. It's fine, but unremarkable.
Gotcha.
I rewatched Gamera, the Giant Monster, um, in preparation of our August episode that unfortunately has not come to be yet.
Yeah. This
R.I.P. to
is
that.
rest in peace.
And then 2 days later, I watched The Mysterians, which I'd never seen before, and quite enjoyed a fair bit.
Yeah, it only inspired Toei's second largest franchise.
And following this, ended up watching, of all things, War of the God Monsters.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, the 1985 Korean mash of Subaraya stock footage. For what it is, I guess, better than I expected, but I don't know, not really my thing either way. And then, after that, the next Toku film I watched is a personal favorite of yours, and a new favorite of mine, it seems. Tetsuo the Iron Man.
Yes.
A very interesting movie for the unenlightened, shall I say?
Yeah, once you watch it, you go through enlightenment. But you haven't achieved enlightenment until you've watched Shinya Tsukamoto's Tetsuo.
You're not a true Toku fan if you have not seen Tetsuo the Iron Man. New rule of this fandom, new gatekeeping rule.
We here at Kaiju Conversation do not condone gatekeeping. However, we do
We
joke
commit it.
that too, but I wasn't going to be that on the nose about it.
Oh, these things happen. And then after that, I watched one of the Kamen Rider Build New World V Cinemas or whatever they're called, the Kamen Rider Cross Z one, which yeah, I heard that one wasn't very good, and yeah, it wasn't very good. Surprise, surprise, I know. I'm not really a big fan of most the Kamen Rider movies I've seen, like the ones that are like sequels or specials for the shows. At best, they're like watchable usually, but like I don't know, some even the best ones I've seen aren't too special. Maybe I'm missing out on something, but yeah, this one was kind of not very good. Wasn't a big fan of how they how they handled the show's main villain in this special. And then after that, it's not really not Japanese toku, but I did watch the American monster film Tremors for the first time.
Classic. We need to do that one soon. That's a good one.
Quite enjoyed it.
And then, was there anything else besides the topic of the day?
Well, I don't know if this is really. It's not really tokusatsu, I suppose. Maybe like one scene with any sort of special effect, but just for Japanese cinema lovers, I watched Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Cure, starring the absolutely brilliant actor Koji Yakusho, as well as a couple familiar faces from Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah and the Gamera trilogy. Brilliant film. And yeah, that's more or less it for movies.
Gotcha.
At least relevant movies, I'd say, to the topic of this podcast.
All right. As for me, I've been busy. I've been working. So I haven't watched as much, and I've been working on articles and projects.
Yeah, I mean, we both have.
Mm-hmm. So like, I haven't watched a whole lot. But what I have watched is I finally acquired and watched the sequel to Takashi Miike's Zebraman, Zebraman 2: Attack on Zebra City, directed by Takashi Miike as well. It's got a great, I don't listen to a lot of Japanese music, but Zebra Queen, the opening theme for that movie is, it's great. I
A
love
banger,
it.
you could say.
It is a banger. It is a bopper. It is a headbanger. Then and this was all in the same night. So like I watched all my Toku on the same day.
Yeah.
I watched Ryuei Kitamura's Alive, which was interesting to watch. The more I watch Kitamura's pre-Final War stuff, the more I understand Final Wars, and I think the more I appreciate the film because it becomes more and more clear to me that it is a true Kitamura film. Like Toho didn't do anything to him, and he just made what he wanted, and it is beautiful. And then I watched the anthology film 10 Nights of Dreams. It's like a modern, I'd say it's like the modern Kwaidan from 1965, except it's not based off the Lafcadio Hearn book. It's based off of a Japanese author's book. And like it had Takashi Shimizu, director of Ju-On, Kon Ichikawa, director of Woman of the Dunes. It was his last thing he worked on before he passed away. And then it's got the director of Tokyo, The Last Megapolis. I see his name in my head, but I can't. I don't remember how you pronounce it. But they all
Akio Jisoji?
Yes, him.
Yeah.
He worked on it. So that was interesting. But besides that, I haven't watched anything. I haven't even watched any new like American movies. I've been well, no, I watched Too Fast and Too Furious. I've now watched 2 of the Fast and the Furious films.
I think for that series, I've only seen like the 8th and like the spin-off.
Yeah. See, my best friend likes movies, but he's like, bro, Bad Boys is great. Have you seen Rush Hour? Oh, Fast and the Furious is awesome. He's like, and I can call him this because he's my best friend. He's like typical Hollywood pleb fan. And I make fun of him for it because I'm like, this isn't art. This is a roller coaster. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, at least you're self-aware.
I mean, hey, Rush Hour is pretty based.
I honestly don't remember it. I remember one part, and it was like, oh, wow. They really had Jackie Chan do that.
I think I know which scene you're referring to.
You definitely know what scene I'm referring to. So I haven't watched too much, but I did watch a movie today. It might be the topic of our.
I wonder what it could be. I'm sure the audience is in full suspense.
I know, right?
Read the title.
I know, right? I watched 2008's porno Cleavage Field.
Whoa!
What, is that not what you watched?
No, but I'm surprised you're finally covering one of those porno films that you've been collecting a lot recently. Finally bring it into an episode of the podcast.
You mean Catgirls? That's not... Well, I mean, it's softcore. And we will. One day, Rex, I will make you watch that. And we will cover it.
Well, I suppose I put it on myself that I will watch literally anything. So yes. I guess I can't can't stop now.
So you didn't... Wait. So how are we supposed to do this episode if you didn't watch the movie?
This is a good question. This is a very unfortunate and unprecedented situation.
Well, here I know a site where you can get the movie. Let me just hang on 1 second. You can watch it and then we can get back to we're doing the actual episode. Hang on 1 second.
Damn, is the movie really just as long as this bit?
What? So, guessing that Rex doesn't cut the entire bit out, We're actually talking about the 2008 movie Cloverfield.
Whoa, I am shocked right now.
I know, right? It's so weird. The film is directed by Matt Reeves, who recently made the film The Batman.
Brilliant film, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Which, besides that, I mean, he did the Planet of the Apes trilogy.
Didn't he only do like the second and third one?
Yeah, he only did the second and third one.
Hmm.
He's got 14 directing credits. He's The Batman, War for the Planet of the Apes, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Cloverfield, and he did. That's actually it. Those are the only movies he's directed. He's done some TV stuff. Well,
I
he
mean,
did
Cloverfield was more or less, I suppose,
his first
big-ish
film.
break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like Gareth Edwards on 2014.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Except this was an original property.
Mm-hmm. Which I must say, watching Matt, like I watched some interviews of Matt Reeves, and he's like a child, and it's so funny watching and listening to him.
What, with how he speaks?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's so happy, and it's like, oh, you would go on to make them the most depressing Batman ever.
And War for the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. But it's quite surprising. We're just gonna jump right into it.
Sure.
I was quite surprised by Matt Reeves' like vision. Like, he had a clear vision, and from what I listened to and what I read and what I've seen, he did his vision.
Yeah.
Props to J.J. Abrams for like letting Matt like put his spin. J.J. Abrams, I think, gets a lot more press than his directors because a lot of times he like controls it more.
I mean, from the sounds of it, the general idea of the film was sparked from J.J. Abrams.
Right, yeah, because he had the
trip to Tokyo.
Yeah, because he was promoting Mission Impossible 3, and him and his son went to a toy store and
saw Godzilla all over.
Yeah, and from there he was like, I want America to have its own Godzilla and it not be Godzilla. Which, props to him. I love that. I'm happy that's what...
Yeah.
It wasn't like, I'm going to get the rights to Godzilla and make a movie.
Yeah.
So that was good to... Even though people were like, it's a Godzilla movie, when promotion was happening, I'm happy that he didn't do that. Like, I was really happy that they went and did their own thing.
Yeah. I mean, hey, get an original property, so it's always good to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the franchise it spawned is a little of an interesting case.
Right. And I think, I mean, Cloverfield, and like building off what you just said, I think a lot of what made Cloverfield comes more from the promotion.
Yeah, particularly with the whole ALG that surrounds the film.
Yeah, especially Tiger Ratu and Slush Show and the whole mystery box idea.
J.J. Abrams loves his mystery box.
He does. Like, that's what made Cloverfield different, because it's a found footage kaiju movie.
Yeah.
Something that has been done. I mean, there's a short segment in Shin Godzilla that did it. Besides that, you've got the knockoff Cloverfield movie Monster from Asylum that released in 2008 to piggyback off of...
Of course, the Asylum did a Cloverfield ripoff.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I not surprised?
And then you've got the Norwegian film Troll Hunter from 2010.
I still need to see that. I've heard really good things about
It's
Troll Hunter.
it's pretty good. It's pretty good. We did a recording, and we both said we hadn't watched it yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I got somebody in our Discord server was like, "You need to watch that movie. It's great." And like that same day, I ordered the Blu-ray off Amazon Prime, and it came within 2 days, and I watched it. It's pretty good. But besides that, it's kind of off on its own. Like,
yeah,
it's very different in the genre, and I think that's what made it so popular was, the promotion and how different it was, and it's really easy to get a hold of.
Yeah, I mean, you can find Cloverfield basically any video store you go to now. I see it all the time. So
yeah,
very accessible.
Mm-hmm. Right. And like Clover was so popular that I remember when Ready Player One was coming out. There was a leak of like all the different characters that were in it, and I know there was like Godzilla, Gigan, Megalon, Mechagodzilla, King Kong, Iron Giant, and one of them was Clover from Cloverfield. But that never happened, of course.
Yeah,
but like
I don't remember seeing Megalon in the background, unfortunately.
Yeah, it would have been cool.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But like, it didn't happen. But Clover was popular enough to be included on that list.
Yeah,
and that's something
you
that
probably would have gotten more screen time than in Paradox too.
yeah, definitely. We've kind of alluded to it, but Cloverfield is the first of what is currently 3 films.
Soon to be 4, apparently.
Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
I checked, we'll get to Cloverfield 2.4 after we talk about the rest of the film.
Yes, 2.4.
But you have Cloverfield, then you've got
Cloverfield Lane.
And then the Cloverfield Paradox, which are in this like anthology. It's like Halloween, actually.
Yeah,
it's like exactly like Halloween's initial like pitch, where Cloverfield happens, and then we were promised a direct sequel, and like that was in development hell, and then they adapted a script into 10 Cloverfield Lane. And it's like not a part of the Cloverfield universe, but it is. And then Paradox explains what it is. It's a whole thing.
A whole can of worms.
And we're only going to cover the first one.
Good, because I haven't seen the other 2.
Good. Maybe. The second one's all right. I don't mind.
Yeah, I do genuinely want to see the second one. And at that point, once I've seen that, I will watch the third one for completion's sake, and for my boy Mr. Grumpy Pants, his little cameo at the end.
Yeah. But going into Cloverfield, so J.J. Abrams went to Japan, was inspired by Godzilla, came back and pitched the film to Paramount. And then from there, they got Drew Goddard, who he worked on Pacific Rim Uprising, did he not? Or am I crazy?
Might have. I don't quite recall. If he did, I didn't see that in his filmography, and I'm an idiot, which is entirely possible.
So Drew Goddard, he wrote Cloverfield. He was the creator of Daredevil and wrote 2 of the episodes. He wrote 1 episode of The Defenders. He wrote the screenplay for The Martian. He worked on Lost. He wrote The Cabin in the Woods, which I haven't seen, but I've been told that's a really good
horror comedy.
it's smarter than just a comedy. It's apparently got a really cool like meta thing that's
Yeah,
really
I
well.
know I know what that is referring to. I've never seen Cabin in the Woods, but I know the gist of like what happens in it.
And he's working on the possible upcoming Sinister Six movie from Sony.
Is that really ever going to get made?
I mean, we'll see. We'll see.
Isn't this like their second attempt at creating the Sinister Six movie?
Yeah. He also directed The Cabin in the Woods, and he also wrote and directed Bad Times at the El Royale.
Oh.
So he wrote Cloverfield.
Yeah.
And I mean, he did a great job on Daredevil. I think his co-writer is the one who did Pacific Rim Uprising, Stephen Estonite.
Yep. That name rings a bell.
So, Drew Goddard wrote it,
Mhm.
and you've got Matt Reeves directing, and then J.J. Abrams is producer. And, J.J.'s done Super 8,
Star Trek,
Star Wars
Star
1
Wars.
and 3 of the sequel series. I Lost. He's working on some DC projects.
Didn't his Batman series just get canceled?
I think it did. Like everything he's announced with Warner has gotten canceled. And like
what a moment.
DC, I mean, I apparently Discovery's like really angry with him because like he was hired on to like be their new like creative mind, and like he's done nothing for them. So
oh yeah, I think I remember seeing people on Twitter like mention something about J.J. Abrams being involved in Warner Bros. For like years and doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and he gets really paid funny. For it.
Yeah, exactly. It's really funny.
Meanwhile, he's writing a Spider-Man comic book and working on a Cloverfield sequel.
Yeah. I genuinely do hope that sequel gets off the ground eventually.
We'll talk. We're going to talk about that here in a bit. So, and as for the cast, the only one that's like worthy of like noting
is T.J. Miller,
who has some controversy around him.
Yeah, love. Not the most lovely fellow around, you could say.
Yeah. But T.J. Miller is in this. It's pre-Deadpool. I know T.J. Miller from, I mean, Transformers: Age of Extinction. I know there's another film he did that I recognize him from. I think it was an animated movie, actually.
Damn, you knowing someone from an animated movie? Since when? Was it Big Hero 6?
No.
The Emoji Movie?
Oh, he was in Ready Player One. That's right. Wait, was Cloverfield his first movie? Cloverfield was his first film.
Sure, you're right.
He had done TV, but Cloverfield was his first movie. He was the only one that like got anywhere besides the director, writer, and producer. But I'm looking here at his list of what he. I think I recognize him from How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah, he played like the
like a brother.
Yeah.
Transformers: Age of Extinction. I have recently watched Big Hero 6, and I recognized him from that. I know he was in Deadpool and Deadpool 2. And then I'm seeing if I recognize any of his TV work, like if I've watched any of it, but it doesn't look like I have. So, you've got T.J. Miller, which I'm going to start off and just make this complaint. I cannot stand his comedy throughout this movie.
Oh, yeah. I mean, his character's a complete a-hole, too, at times.
It's Marvel comedy before Marvel comedy. And he doesn't stop.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of it. There's only really one comedic moment that lands for me in the film, and that's like when the horse just shows up on the street.
And they're like, "Oh my god! Oh my god!" Or
I don't think they even react to it. They just see it,
um,
and it's really funny.
there was one. I want to say it was at the beginning with when they were like doing the testimonies. Oh, when T.J. Miller's character was trying to get with Elena.
Oh yeah,
I was like, this dude, he's not reading the room at all. He's so stupid. Like I thought it was funny because I'm like, this dude is like failing miserably right now.
yeah.
But besides that, I didn't really find much of it comedic.
Yeah, it's
And
not
like
my comedy style.
every other character in this movie is written to be serious and like how I would react to HUD being in that situation. It's like, shut up.
I mean, they tell him to shut up at multiple points.
Yeah. And I'm like, why is he your best friend?
They barely even seem like friends, to be honest.
Yeah, and like I was thinking about that. I was like, I have a best friend, and I definitely have better chemistry than they do.
Like, honestly, I thought he was Jason's friend more than Rob's friend.
Yeah.
Up until like the end scene where he explicitly says, "My best friend HUD," blah blah blah.
Yeah. And I felt like that was a issue in the writing. I didn't like that.
I mean, frankly, I think that's kind of Cloverfield's issue, is that the situations and the scenarios are great. The writing surrounding the film is just there.
Right. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Matt Reeves does a great job. And like I was saying, his vision is clear. He does a great job establishing.
I mean, I suppose it does make sense given how seemingly rushed pre-production was, at least on the writing side of things, because the film didn't even have a finished script by the time principal photography started.
Right, and like they would hand the actors their finalized scripts like when they were filming.
Yeah. And the filming itself was also short too, at about like I think it was like over a month, like just over a month from the sound of things.
Yeah. And like there was a lot of improv during the party sequence that was all unscripted essentially. That was just them like the actors said that was them creating their characters. Which, I think they kind of do, but the writing also it's kind of
I feel it would have helped to have an actual clear, like, to actually have the writer's vision there for the characters rather than just letting the actors just work it out themselves. So I mean, sometimes that can work, but here it's just like, okay, you do this while I figure out the rest of the script. It's just
right. Yeah. And there is one particular part in the writing that I love, because it reminds me of Godzilla 54. When Clover first arrives and they see on the TV the explosions.
Yeah.
And they go and look up and they see the explosions and the flying debris.
Yeah.
Somebody says, and it's like in the background, is this another terrorist attack? And it's this movie, much like 54, was made in response to a very traumatic experience for a country. And for America, that was the events of the terrorist attack September 11th of 2001, where you had two planes fly into the Twin Towers in New York, a plane fly into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and then a plane that the people aboard were able to crash land into a field in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So, like, to me, that one line was like the one of the young people who died on the boat, or didn't die on the boat, but saw Godzilla's first appearance when they're on the train before they go on the boat, and they say, "What's this Godzilla thing? I really don't. Is it? I really don't want to evacuate again." What's the
Yeah.
line? Yeah,
Something. It was something like that.
I already
A bit more
survived two
direct than
atomic.
that.
I already survived 2 atomic bombs. Now Godzilla. It's something like that.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool that they did that little 9/11 reference.
Mm.
Now, the film also got a lot of like backlash because people thought the film was a little insensitive about everything,
Mm.
which I don't think so.
I
Personally,
don't agree with that, but I'm also not American, so
fair. Like for me, it's like the film was not riffing or making fun of 9/11.
no. I mean, the point is how terrifying it is, really.
Right. And like the whole idea of the film was to see the reactions of people in these intense situations.
Yeah, and to put the audience in that situation as well.
And a lot of people who went to see Cloverfield, everybody who went to see Cloverfield experienced 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
Just like how everybody who pretty much went and saw Godzilla experienced Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
and
this
like,
had even less of a gap since than Gojira did as well.
right. Because Godzilla, it was 9 years. Cloverfield was 7 years. So it was,
6.5 more, really,
yeah.
because the film
Fair.
came out like early January. Yeah,
Yes. January
January
18th of
18th, because
2000.
that's like the date in some of the ARGs
Mm-hmm.
and on one of the bonus features.
So, it was a little shorter of a time span, but not too much.
Yeah,
But I really like that. And, I personally am really
I mean, the film is pretty direct about its influences, even
right.
without that line.
Right. And
Just with being shot found footage style, you can really see the influence from the real life videos.
And there's a moment where Clover knocks down the Empire State Building, and it's shot from the ground, and it's it's HUD looking at this street, and you just see, like when you see the footage of the Twin Towers falling, you see the or the Empire State Building just collapsing, and then the dust rolling, and that's exactly.
Was that the one at the beginning?
Yes.
Like
yes.
Oh, yep.
And like,
yeah, that actually does resemble quite closely some of the real footage, actually.
And just before that, you had the Statue of Liberty, her head being chucked across New York. When, movie magic landing where our protagonists are. And with that, it's like Clover's about to deface liberty and freedom. And Clover definitely does that. Like, everybody's forced to move and get out. And, like, everybody's dying.
I mean, the monster is clearly eating somebody, as one of the characters states.
And in the
and HUD, I suppose.
In one of the, I think it's a newsreel. In the film, they say it's eating people. No.
No, it's one of the characters who says
Yeah,
that.
she says it was eating people. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
Okay, yeah, and then it eats half of HUD.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, that scene in particular, I just am imagining his best friend and his best friend's brother's girlfriend just standing like 200 feet away from him as he gets picked up and half his body's just torn off, and then the bottom or the top half of his body and the camera fall back, and they just run over.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was thinking as well.
Like, what? Like, dude, if my best friend got like chopped in half and ate, I'd be running the opposite direction. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna keep filming for you.
But you see, we needed to pick up the camera for the audience.
Yeah. Or, I mean, they could have just had them running away on the camera shot and Clover run up and eat them.
The better ending.
And then, like, the tail hits the camera and it freeze frames on, like, the tail. But that would cut out, 10 minutes of this already pretty short film.
Yeah, I mean, the credits roll at about the 74-minute mark, I believe it was. I knew the movie was short, but I didn't realize how short it actually was.
That and, like, things don't stop. And that is one thing I'll give the writing. The writing does not stop. There's not a dull moment in the film.
Oh, yeah, the film goes beat to beat to beat to beat.
Mm-hmm.
No end whatsoever. Even I noticed that. Like, I really felt that, like, when, like, the one moment where the film, like, very briefly stops, and then it just immediately resumes, which is when they meet up with the military and what's her name? Melanie dies.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a shocking moment on the first watch.
Yeah.
As well. If you don't know it's coming, it's a great moment.
Right, because it's like everything's fine, and then all of a sudden the camera looks over and she's bleeding. Her eyes are bleeding, and she says, "I don't feel so good." Everybody freaks out,
and then like, her belly explodes.
Yeah, and we see right before. And one thing,
yeah, we see a corpse of someone who'd suffered the same fate just before too, setting it up.
There's some great setup in this film. One note that I put is I love the circle that this film goes in, because the film starts essentially like when the movie actually starts, it starts with testimonies, like get testimonies for Rob so he can go on his trip.
Yeah.
And the movie ends with Rob giving a testimony before he dies or goes on to the afterlife, whatever that trip is. I love that. I think that's a great way to circle around, and like it went from a warm color to a cool color. Like the progression, it's a complete 180, but it's the same circumstance in the regards of they're giving testimonies.
I mean, you can also see it as just a testimony of these are the people who lived, the people who went through this horrific event similar to that of 9/11.
True, but they do die.
Yeah. I mean, no, I mean like they lived as in they existed, they were here, and now they're gone.
Right. Because shortly after their death, presumably, if we're going to base it off of what J.J. Abrams initially said, they killed the creature.
Yeah.
But since then, I'm pretty sure there's been some contradicting statements.
I mean, it at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter until we get 2.4. So.
Right. Oh, well, I guess at the end of the trailer, it says it's alive. Yeah, it's still alive. It's like when you replay the audio, the military guy clearly
it's
alive. It's walking still.
Yeah. There is that, I suppose. I mean, again, doesn't really matter until 2.4 anyways.
Right.
Who knows? They could kill it like 5 minutes after that recording.
Right. But it's really cool how quickly everything moved. Like it's an adrenaline rush.
Yeah, and I mean the style of filmmaking really really helps that as well.
Mm-hmm. Even though a lot of people couldn't stomach it because it
Yeah.
was really shaky compared to the famous Blair Witch Project, which came out about almost a decade before,
Yeah.
and was the main film of that
I mean, it
style.
sparked the found footage genre, and then soon after, Paranormal Activity followed suit, and bada bing, bada boom, we get a whole genre of these films,
Mm-hmm. Right.
whole new genre of horror.
And we have moments like in Shin Godzilla where they were clearly inspired by that. Pulse, the Koichi Kurosawa, did I say his name right?
Kiyoshi Kurosawa.
Kiyoshi Kurosawa. In his movie Pulse, there's a few moments like that. It's not found footage in the same sense, but there's footage of the computer screen and you see through it. Ju-on does this as well. In the sequel, I think it's the sequel. It might be the first. I think it's the first one because that one's the one that freaks me out. In Ju-on, there's a sequence where it's a security camera and you see.
Yeah. That's the first one. Yeah.
And
that's
then there's
also in The Grudge as well.
And then Record, REC. That's Chinese, right? Or is that Korean? The zombie.
What, the Wreck movie?
Yeah.
I don't remember what country it's from. I don't think it's China or Korea. I think it's somewhere else. I just can't think of it. I don't remember where it's.
It's Spanish. It's Spanish. I knew it was foreign. Yeah. The one I saw here, and I've seen monstrosities talk about it. Norori, the Curse.
I've heard about that film a bit recently. I've heard interesting things about it.
I've heard it's pretty good. I haven't seen it myself. But there's stuff like that. So Blair Witch was very inspirational to the grand scheme of horror
and even action to an extent.
Yeah.
I mean, you could argue, some would argue Cloverfield's technically a bit of an action film, which
I'd
say it's necessarily wrong.
Action thriller horror.
Yeah, I'd argue that too.
But I think one thing though is Cloverfield. It doesn't fall into. It's grandiose in the sense of you feel like this is bigger than what Blair Witch Project was.
Yeah, I mean, Blair Witch Project was a very, very small production too.
Right.
Whereas this is an actual Hollywood film that is able to get away with more.
Right. Now, I will say though, Cloverfield has a very small budget. It had a budget of $30 million.
Yeah.
Whereas, most of your Hollywood films are like $100 million.
But in when you consider that this is a found footage film, that is a very high budget for a found footage film.
True, because Blair Witch Project was $60,000, which is a little over $500,000.
Paranormal Activity was even less, I believe.
Yeah, it was 15,000.
15,000, and then became one of, if not the most profitable movie percentage-wise.
Right. And to compare that, the Blair Witch sequel was $15 million, and the Blair Witch third film, directed by Adam Wingard, who would do Godzilla vs. Kong, was $5 million. So, I mean,
and then Paranormal Activity 2 and 3 were about $3 and $5 million, respectively.
Which the sequel to Paranormal Activity is actually Japanese. Am I wrong?
No, not that I'm aware of. I haven't seen it, but I don't believe so.
Paranormal Activity Japanese. Oh yeah, Paranormal Activity 2 Tokyo Night. Oh,
What is this? I've never heard of it. This isn't. Um, it,
oh,
this must be.
oh, it's a Japanese adaptation.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because I've never heard of this one before. Literally right now, because the Paranormal Activity 2 I'm familiar with was the American one, which is a direct sequel to the original Paranormal Activity.
Now I gotta see this new Paranormal Activity movie that nobody knows about.
God damn it! Now I have to see it too.
But
I'm actually interested.
back to Cloverfield. I guess that is true. It's got a way bigger budget.
Yeah, comparatively speaking,
and even like it did really well financially too. It made
it's a pretty well-known film overall as well.
Right, and
it's cemented a place in pop culture, as we were mentioning earlier.
Right, and a lot of that came from the marketing, but it made 172 million, which is almost 6 times the amount its budget was. That's probably not including marketing, of course.
I was about to say.
So, marketing doubled that, so about 60 million. That's still double. And considering
is that worldwide or domestic?
That's internationally. Domestically made 82 million.
Okay.
So
that's
even
still
domestically, it still made its budget and promotional budget back, and then about, what is that, 15% more, something like that.
Depends. It really depends on how much the marketing budget was.
Right.
We can only guess at that.
Which I also read somewhere that the marketing was actually more remote than like involved with the film, which is interesting. That they were more hands-free of the promotional. I mean, I guess it makes sense because it was a very complex thing, but
yeah,
it was interesting to see and read that. But I wanted to see if we could go back and talk a bit more about the story.
Sure. Yeah.
One thing that I really like, though, was specifically the sequence where they're in the subway.
Yes.
I think they went back and reshot that sequence. That was the only sequence they reshot, to my understanding. From the initial... Well, like, they did reshoots, but, like, that was the only one they went back and was like, yeah, we're going to change this. Initially, the film was supposed to be puppets in that sequence.
Yeah.
But they changed it to CGI when they realized that the CGI would look better. Kind of pulled a Jurassic Park.
Yeah. I mean, you could still see one of the puppets in the film.
Right.
In the later sequence when Melanie dies.
But that sequence in particular, I love how Matt Reeves sets it up, even though it's like plot convenience. Since... it's like, oh, the camera also just so happens to have night vision.
Wow. I can buy it. I
mean, it's apparently a tape, because Rob keeps saying the tape inside the tape, even though in the movie it says it's an SD card. And, like, if it's an SD card, and even if it's a tape, it wouldn't have that back and forth from the footage prior on it.
Oh yeah. That didn't make much sense to me outside of just a movie.
It's a magical camera.
Yeah.
Which when I rewatched it for this recording, the shakiness didn't bother me as much.
Oh yeah, it's not like it's definitely shaky, but it's I guess it's more coordinated with it.
Yeah.
Like it's uncoordinated enough that the immersion isn't broken. But like if you really sit down and look at it, You can tell usually when there's an actual cinematographer involved.
Right, which
But I think
apparently
that's a good thing.
right. Which apparently though about an eighth of the film was actually shot by T.J. Miller.
Yeah, and even Rob's actor as well
Mm-hmm.
did some of the scenes with the Bethany character
Mm-hmm.
where he was actually shooting it.
So it was, I think this is a good example of Hollywood found footage.
Mhm.
I think another film that comes to mind is Europa Report. That one was all found footage. That was more independent though, but like Adam Wingard's Blair Witch.
I've heard terrible things about that movie, but having not seen it, I don't want to comment yet on it.
I watched it in preparation to Godzilla vs Kong. I went and I watched a few of Wingard's other films,
Mhm.
like I did with Doherty, except with Doherty I only did Krampus. I was going to do Trick or Treat, but I never did. But with Wingard, I watched Death Note and I watched Blair Witch.
Mhm.
And Blair Witch is not nearly as shaky as the original. Um, but an issue I have with modern found footage is it's like too digital. It looks fake. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like you're shooting with a digital camera, making digital stuff. It doesn't work. And what
Mhm.
I like about Cloverfield is they shot it digitally and then they put it on 35 millimeter. So the film has that grainy. And another thing I like is it's in the right aspect ratio. It's not in a cinematic aspect ratio, it's in a
Yes.
typical camera aspect ratio. And when I started the film, I'm like, I wonder if they're going to do that. And they did that. I was like, awesome. Like, I
Yeah.
forgot that they did that.
It's like there was actual care put in
Yeah.
to the found footage element.
And I felt like Blair Witch, the ending was paralleling the original too much, and it was too digital.
Mm.
Um, this Cloverfield feels like it's on the ground, but it's also good enough where you
Mhm.
don't. And like when they zoom in and it's blurry, and HUD like shakes the camera so it'll focus. It's like I like that. It's a little thing, but it
Nice little touch.
yeah, exactly. It's a nice little touch, and it helps.
I mean, they used autofocus for a couple scenes as well, just to
Mhm,
add to that realism for it.
right. Um, and they filmed on site a lot.
Mm.
Only really one scene was with green screen. Uh,
Yeah, being the bridge scene.
hmm And like I appreciate how much effort they put into creating a world.
Mm.
Like they actually put thought into the world, and I like that.
And even when the world is digital, it's like I'd say it's noticeable, but it's not distracting either.
Right. And I think the film benefits from being this intimate, tight cast film. Like the
Mm.
there's not a lot of people truly in the cast. There's a
Yeah,
lot of people in the film, but in the cast there's only four.
yeah,
Now the writing
and
is an issue, but
yeah, but yeah, this movie again is more about the scenario rather than an intimate character drama.
right. But I think it could have benefited from that a bit.
I agree. I agree. I think that's the one thing that does really hold the film back
Hmm
is that writing.
Yeah.
It,
And
it just could use a little something to push it.
right, exactly. It because the plot just goes.
Hmm.
There's no build up there, but I mean it is found footage, so there isn't. It's not supposed to be cinematic. It's supposed to be this
Mhm.
small part of the story, but it's still a movie,
Yeah.
and like the magical camera that does what it does, having stills from Beast from 20,000 Fathoms and King Kong and them appear. It's like that's not how cameras work unless it's possessed. But you know, it's like you gotta write it a bit so you have a reason to care.
Yeah.
And that's one thing. Like with Rob's ex, like I had no care about her.
Oh yeah. I mean, really, it's like it's kind of surprised. She's just kind of the girlfriend,
Yeah.
the one that he left her.
Mm-hmm.
Despite getting numerous flashbacks to them, we don't really learn a lot from said flashbacks.
Right. We just know they had an intimate night,
Yeah.
and then they went to Coney Island the next day. For all we know, they could have broke up right after that.
Yeah. I mean, they more or less did.
Yeah. So it's like, why? Like, and, in the film, they do say, well, they've been friends since college. And it's like, how long's college been? Like, these guys are like 20s, 30s. Like, college
Yeah.
wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
It's just, there's not a lot explaining. And the only character I really feel bad dying is the brother. And that's solely because we constantly hear from everybody else how impactful his death was.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else, like when Elena dies, it's like HUD.
Oh yeah, they move on pretty much instantly.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, I guess we're not gonna dwell on that.
I mean, to be fair, HUD's a bit of an a-hole. So
True, but also apparently she was Lily's friend. But like,
yeah,
she's dead. I'm sorry, Rod, and that's it.
no, she's like, I'm sorry, HUD,
Or yeah,
but we got to keep moving.
yeah, exactly. It's like, bro, you were about to like die over your boyfriend dying, and now your best friend or your friend is like, we gotta move on. It's like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just people with friends, because like HUD they kind of move past. Elena they move past. Maybe
I think they're just bad friends. I think they're all just horrible people. Maybe they just deserve to die.
Yeah, yeah. They all deserve.
I mean, HUD definitely did, but
he deserved more.
I mean, hey, he got eaten in half at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to talk about the plot extensively because it's kind of just you go beat by beat. There's not a lot to it, like outside of just analyzing, like, oh, I really like this specific scene, blah 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 blah, and blah 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 9/11, you know.
Right.
But that's not necessarily a bad thing, mind you. It's just I don't know. The film really is missing just that little something in the writing that could just push it from a fun, adrenaline-filled monster flick, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree. Before we wrap, do you have anything else you really want to... We've been talking about the film itself for about almost an hour. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up?
This feels ironic that the Cloverfield episode feels like it's going by real quick.
Yeah, I agree. I know we've at least talked about it for 38 minutes, and I'm pretty sure we started about 40 minutes into the recording, like actually talking about Cloverfield. So I think we're about at an hour.
Damn. I don't know. I feel like there's more I want to say.
There's one last thing I could bring up, and that's the lack of a score and the inclusion of the score.
Yeah.
The film does not have anything but ambient sounds throughout the film.
Yeah.
Until the credits.
I didn't even realize that until the credits started rolling, that there had been like no music.
The sound design in the film's really good.
Oh yeah, the piercing scream of the monster in particular.
I love We haven't. Okay, so we got to talk
He
about the
hasn't talked
story.
much about Clover himself. Yeah, actually.
So let's pause on the
Go
story
back a step.
and let's talk about Clover. No, you're right. The scream is like it's haunting.
It's a piercing noise. It's really just a really good sound effect. Like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these American monster movies kind of, I don't know how to really describe it properly, but they just
It's
fall into this
animalistic.
generic and animal. Yeah, but
Yes.
this one actually sounds like it could be a real animal, but it's also a giant monster. It has that.
I think it's
I really don't.
unnatural. I think it's
Yeah,
unnatural.
it's yeah, yeah. I'd agree with that. It's got enough natural elements where like you can tell it's a raw. I'd
Mm-hmm.
say,
Mm-hmm.
and that like going in with the idea of this monster being an infant, you can be like, yeah, I hear that, but then also it's got that unnaturalness to it, where it's like, what the hell is that thing?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that adds to the fear and the dread.
And even the mystery, because I
Yeah.
mean, you don't really know what the creature is at first. It like you see it and it's like, is that a monster? It looks like a monster, and but you don't get that reveal until just a little bit later.
Right. No, and um I sent you the image of like the scrap designs, right? Like the possible
mm,
silhouettes.
oh, you did. You didn't send it to me directly, but I saw your post about it. Yeah.
Okay. See, there was my little ARG for hinting at what we were going to be talking about. I also did you look at what I sent you a file?
Oh, the call sheet. Yeah, I did look at
Yeah,
that.
that was really cool too.
Yeah, that
Um,
was cool to see. Um,
but I one thing I noticed now the Cloverfield design came very late in production. They weren't really sure what it was going to look like for a while.
I mean, they had from what I understand, Neville Page was the lead designer on at least the final design. I don't know if he did any of the other ones, like the silhouettes you posted,
Mm-hmm.
but for the final design, at least he was given very quote broad direction for what the creature would look like.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't There weren't many specifics on the actual creature itself, and he
Right.
had to just go off his imagination really, and thinking of logical elements to add.
I read an article or not an article, an interview by him, uh, and he in it said, I wasn't told not to do Godzilla, but I didn't want to do Godzilla. Um, so like in his head, he always wanted it to be this limber thing. Now, I will say the worst thing to come from Clover
Mm.
is every other giant monster feels from America at this point feels like it's tall and
Yeah,
limber, like the Mutos and the monster from Stranger Things,
yeah, the mind flare.
and it's
Yeah,
like
everything feels like it takes influence from Cloverfield, at least, but there's something really unique about Cloverfield that I think all of them lack. I don't quite know what it is. Maybe it's how animalistic and how much like an infant, sorry, this monster does actually look like.
it feels to me it's very unnatural, and it does
Mhm.
something that like a child like children aren't fully developed, and
Yeah.
horror movies, Evil Dead Trap I think of specifically utilizes children to like create demonic creatures that look
Hmm.
otherworldly because they're just not developed human beings yet. And I think
Hmm.
Clover is a prime example of what like it looks not fully developed. Like its skin isn't
Yeah.
it's unnatural, but it's
Hmm.
also it makes sense like it wouldn't be fully developed if this was a baby like they say it is.
Yeah. I mean, that really did influence a lot of the decisions that Mr. Page made, from what I understand. That idea that it was a baby.
Now, I've also heard the theory that there's multiple, because the
Mm-hmm.
monster does appear to change size.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I didn't really notice it myself, but that doesn't surprise me. That's just kind of an issue with CG monsters, to be honest.
This is true.
Like, like Jurassic World, the Mosasaurus in that thing goes from massive to even bigger, and then when it shows up at the end to eat the Indominus, it's like almost a regular sized mosasaur, maybe just a little bit bigger.
Right.
And then in the sequels, it's massive again.
Yeah, that is fair. Overall, I think, and I was reading Kevin Derendorf's book Kaiju for Hipsters, and he brought up a good point here.
Mm-hmm.
Clover is great as like an establishing monster. The issue is it's not America's Godzilla.
Yeah.
And that's where Cloverfield falls.
Mm-hmm.
It's good.
Yeah, but the thing is, for me, I don't feel it needs to be that.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Like, sure, I'll agree if like, yeah, that is what J.J. Abrams wanted, and in that sense, the movie does fail to be that. Like, as much as Cloverfield is remembered, it doesn't have the same legacy as King Kong.
Right.
But in a way, maybe it came too late almost.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I mean, at the moment at least, all the big franchises are coming back. Most of them are very nostalgic properties, and I mean, maybe in the future, Cloverfield will get that treatment. Maybe Cloverfield 2.4 is sort of the closest thing to that treatment, but at the moment, it's just Cloverfield has not had the same impact on the world that King Kong or Godzilla did.
Right. Now, one thing I think partially for why Cloverfield is the way it is I personally think that Cloverfield, what makes Cloverfield great is it doesn't follow any other giant monster movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's out on its own. Like Troll Hunter is not a horror, it's like a discovery. Monster is a cheap knockoff film that nobody really knows.
Mm-hmm.
Shin Godzilla used that one sequence for the teaser, and like besides people thinking it might be found footage, it never really got brought back up again once the film came out.
Yeah. I mean, Shin's a very different beast entirely.
Right. So, like, the found footage genre for kaiju and giant monsters doesn't really exist.
No. I mean, this film basically stands more or less on its own.
It stands on its own, but found footage in of itself is a subgenre of a genre. Mm-hmm. And when you're doing a subgenre of a subgenre, it becomes even tinier. I think Cloverfield stands out, but also is too low profile. It didn't create.
I guess
it didn't create anything like King Kong did. Like King Kong established stop motion essentially.
Yeah.
Cloverfield is almost like The Lost World from 1925. The Lost World from 1925 established stop motion as this great thing to bring these dinosaurs to life, and a grandiose adventure. But it wouldn't be until 1933 with King Kong that would really be acknowledged.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talk about stop motion, people don't talk about Lost World, they talk about King Kong.
Yeah.
When O'Brien's brought up, it's King Kong. It's never the Lost World.
Yeah.
So perhaps Cloverfield is the Lost World of its type.
I don't know. I feel it's a bit of a different case when you had Blair Witch and to establish this genre, and then Paranormal Activity came out and really was really successful. I feel like this is a bit of a different case. Like I'd almost say more Mighty Joe Young would be slightly better of a comparison, but not a lot of people really know Mighty Joe Young, even less than The Lost World, really.
I could see that. I could see the Lost World being a good comparison.
I don't necessarily disagree with your comparison. It's just not one-to-one, really.
I mean, that's fair.
But overall, I agree with the point that definitely did not have the lasting impact that Abrams wanted from the film. That much is certain.
Yeah, and I think when Abrams realized that, he tried to figure out how he could recreate the brand, which is why we went with the whole anthology thing. And then he found out that's not what people wanted. And then he was like, I got to retroactively fix this. And then we got Paradox, which created a paradox and was not liked. And then he was like, and part of the reason, and I think this is we still got to talk about the score, but this is a good segue into Cloverfield 2.4, as I call it. They, Matt Reeves and J.J. Abrams, after the film came out, it did really successful. It critically was well liked. The audience liked it. It did what they wanted. It made its money. And they kept saying, "Oh, we want to do a sequel, but we don't know how we can do it differently." They talked about doing it from a different perspective of that night. Kind of like the Halloween 2, like a continuation of the same night. But they didn't. They felt like that wasn't different enough. They wanted to make something different because Cloverfield in of itself was a different take on a genre. And they didn't want to just keep doing the same thing over and over. Unlike kind of like Godzilla. The first one was just Godzilla. The second one was the establishment of the verses. Yeah, they probably didn't want to go that route.
Which, creatively speaking, fair enough, honestly.
Right. Matt Reeves was in talks to do a sequel, but it never happened. Even though the film opened at #1 at the box office, and it did great, it never happened. That being said, however, back in 2018, after Paradox came out and it kind of bombed, we got the reveal that Cloverfield 2.4 was in the works, with J.J. Abrams set to produce it, as per normal. It would be a true sequel to the original film, which
wasn't that a bit more recently? Back in around Paradox's time, that was when what was it? What would become Overlord?
Overlord
was being said to be a Cloverfield production initially,
and apparently A Quiet Place was also at one point possibly going to fall into it.
Yes, that too.
But John Krasinski was like, "No, you're not hijacking my project."
Fair enough, honestly.
But yeah, and Overlord got pulled out apparently last second from being a Cloverfield sequel. But I read that a true Cloverfield, I think comicbook.com, which, sometimes they're not the best of sources. I think they reported it back in 2018 that a true Cloverfield sequel was in the works. And it's said to not be found footage. Reeves would not be involved. And then we got the announcement a year or two later that Joe Barton was the writer who's working on the Matt Reeves spinoff of the Batman, the TV show. He's writing that.
The Penguin one?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's the Batman TV spinoff. He's writing it, which is kind of
Mhm.
interesting to see. Matt Reeves is still, in a way connected to this.
Yeah.
And upon doing my reading for Cloverfield 2.4, I recalled a few months ago him saying Cloverfield 2.4 is still happening. Just wait. And I checked today on his Twitter feed, and he replied to somebody who was like, please tell me I can just give up on Cloverfield 2. And he said, no, keep faith, it's coming. He's been the only one that's talked about it for the last 3 years, which makes me wonder, are they taking a long time in writing it? Abrams said it was coming to theaters very soon. Are they just going to, like, at this next Super Bowl, drop a trailer, and then we're like, oh, there's a movie coming out? Or what do they do?
Drop it to Netflix a week after announcing it.
I mean, Paradox dropped literally right after the Super Bowl game, and its trailer dropped at the Super Bowl game.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. It was like the same day or day after, wasn't it?
It was 2 hours.
Oh, I see. I thought for some reason my brain was like a week later. Yeah, no, that's insane. Like, there was only like what rumors of that film beforehand, like the God Particle.
Yeah, it was like it had filmed, and like they were saying it was a Cloverfield sequel, but it wasn't confirmed.
Yeah.
And then like the trailer dropped, and like it included footage from Cloverfield. I remember sitting watching the game, like, what? Like, what? And then it showed the new footage, and it said Cloverfield Paradox. I'm like, oh, so it is that the God Particle. And I watched.
Yeah, and then that film was very
poorly received.
very well received.
Yeah.
You know?
But that's all on Cloverfield 2.4. Now I need to talk about Michael Giacchiondo's score. Roar, the Cloverfield Overture, is amazing. Michael Giacchiondo did the Jurassic Park movies.
World.
Yeah, the Jurassic World movies. He did Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, I think. He's worked on a ton. He's actually directing the upcoming Marvel special, Werewolf by Night. He also directed...
He's also done a Kaiju short film as well.
Yes, with Patton Oswalt. He did Monster Challenge. Which he used his Cloverfield score for at the end in the credits.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Been a while since I've seen that, so I don't really remember.
He's a huge Godzilla fan, and at one point he was rumored to be the composer for Godzilla vs. Kong, which he...
Oh, that would have been so much better!
Yeah, I mean...
Why do you tell me this?
He's went on record for saying, like, he was inspired by Ultraman and Godzilla. And,
I do remember the Ultraman one. I do remember that.
And it's like, why can't we get you to do something? Like, and he said he would love to, but they never reached out to him.
I can kind of feel some of the Ifukube influence in Cloverfield's score. There's this one beat in it, or a couple beats in it, where it genuinely does sound Ifukube inspired.
I can agree to that. It's like the rhythm, the da-da-da-da, or...
Yes, that in particular.
Yeah. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, or whatever.
Yes, that specific section sounds very Ifukube.
Yeah, I agree. And it's haunting. It's actually really haunting.
It's a brilliant track.
Yeah.
Like, for a movie with like no score otherwise, it's got a banger just single track.
And I think it doesn't get appreciated in the kaiju sphere as much as it should.
I mean, frankly, most people just probably haven't really listened to it because
it's long.
Me to watch credits.
And yeah, it's in the credits. But like I would put Michael Giacchiondo's score up there. See, the three I think of when I think of American are Bear McCreary's King of the Monsters score, the composer of Pacific Rim. What's his name? He also did Iron Man. His score is like that. That is American kaiju music to a key.
I mean, honestly, Pacific Rim is just the perfect American kaiju movie at the moment.
Yeah, but I think one thing, and I was actually thinking about this. I think the one thing that Pacific Rim doesn't get that Cloverfield wins on it is it does have a bit of that like political commentary,
true,
political
true
influence.
I mean, maybe you can say Cloverfield is more of a 54 inspired type of shebang, even coming out before Pacific Rim. And then Pacific Rim is our Showa era verse style film. I suppose you could compare it to.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to label the two films. Both are great. And I think both are a staple of like how well America can do kaiju.
I think they're the best examples of American kaiju, at least in the modern scene.
I agree, definitely.
But even then, personally, I'm a bigger fan of Toho Kong than American Kong, so a little bit of bias there.
Fair. I will say though, Kong Skull Island is probably like top. If I had to get like a Mount Rushmore, it'd be Cloverfield, Pacific Rim, Tremors, Kong Skull Island.
I need to rewatch Skull Island because I loved Skull Island when I saw it in the theaters. Mm-hmm. I didn't really like it all that much on my second watch. Something about it just didn't click with me then. But then on my third watch, I really enjoyed it again. And I haven't seen it in years since now. So I was going to rewatch it when GVK came out, but I didn't end up doing that for whatever reason. And yeah.
Well, the last thing I want to say about Cloverfield, and then I've pretty much said all I can say. I loved its alternate titles: Monstrous, Overnight, Found, Chocolate, Outrage, Cheese, and Slusho. Yeah.
Can't forget J.J. Abrams' love of Slusho.
This is true. This is very true. So that's all I got. You got anything?
I love the monster name, Mr. Grumpy Pants.
Yeah, wasn't that the? I'm trying to remember where that came from.
I don't remember where it came from. I think it was like a production, like crew nickname or something. Maybe.
That sounds right.
But I never actually, I never found a source for where that name came from. I don't know. We kind of overlooked the parasites, I'd say. I really like those things. I think they were also a really I think they were also a nice design.
Yeah, to me they're like a little the sprinkles, like they're not a huge part. They just add to the. I mean, they're a part of the tunnel sequence, which is, I think, arguably the best scene in the film.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a definite highlight from the film. Actually, probably one of my other favorite sequences, or at least moments from the film, is like that moment when they're in the apartment building, like the crumpled over apartment building. And then when they've just rescued the girlfriend, they look out the window, and the monster's heading straight towards them.
Yeah, that's a cool shot.
That is probably one of my favorite, if not my single favorite shot from the movie. Like,
it's like that impending doom that's just coming towards you.
Like, I'm like Godzilla 2014. I like that movie, But man, what could have been if they went full on horror with that?
Mm-hmm.
What Gareth Edwards and I don't remember the cinematographer's name could have done, I think, could have just been top tier genre filmmaking. Maybe not top tier writing. I don't think you could save 2014 with the writing crew, but at least some wonderful horror sequences. Like what little is there is brilliant,
Mm-hmm.
but I think really could have gone full on with it, and it would have been a wonderful experience, I think.
King of the Monsters, when Emma gets the orca and Ghidorah starts chasing her, that I thought, I mean, minus the fact I hate wing walking Ghidorah and the CGI looks shoddy.
The CG is definitely shoddy there.
I thought that was kind of cool, especially with how the eyes of Ghidorah are kind of lit the way they are.
I don't know. I think that's a little too. I don't know. I think that's.
It doesn't have enough in the shot to make it look cool because it's just.
And I mean, it's also just lacking a lot of tension, I'd say.
Yeah, because it's like what's going to happen.
Yeah,
but like if
there's
they
no shock to it.
If they did something like that with like the approaching of like the Mutos, and like narratively it made sense and it was well shot and the CGI looked good, I think it could work really well.
I mean, we've got that whole that SDCC thing for 2014, like the
experience,
the one that was leaked. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Like that is cool. That is a cool like having an actual Godzilla encounter as a civilian. That is really cool, and I think Cloverfield does a great job capitalizing on that.
I agree,
particularly in its format, which really, as stated earlier, immerses you in that experience. And then with those creatures, it adds another sense of, wow, not only are we not safe in up high, down on the ground, we're not even safe underground. How do we get out of this situation,
Right. And it's like, and they mentioned that the parasites were pulling them away. And it's like,
yeah,
and they're probably pulling them to Clover because Clover eats people.
Yeah.
And the ones that can't pull away, it infects and then they die.
Yeah.
It's a really cool concept, and I wish they could expand upon it in a sequel.
I want them to expand upon it, but I don't want them to go too far with it.
Right. Because part of what makes the first Cloverfield, I think, the coolest is the mystery. You've seen 10.
I mean, it helps that it does actually have the monster, to be fair.
Right. Right. Have you seen 10 Cloverfield Lane?
I have not.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Then I can't say what I was going to say because it'd be a spoiler.
I mean, I know there's aliens at the end.
Well, I'll just say this. The cool thing from Cloverfield Lane is at the end, you actually don't know if she was right for doubting or wrong because he might have been right. So there's a bit of that mystery still. And then Paradox explains all the mystery. Except the monster part. We just see it pop up. He's like, "It's me, Cloverfield."
Oh boy.
So there's a Mario reference.
Oh well, at least we get one last piercing scream in that movie.
This is true. This is very true.
Imagine if like 2.4 came out and then they didn't include that roar.
Like if they did the whole GVK and King of the Monsters thing where like they degrade the roar so the bass isn't like as empowering. And...
Oh, that'd be terrible. Don't even give me that idea. You're just setting me up for disappointment.
You mean you don't like it when Godzilla roars at Kong and it's the trailer roar, so you even hear the music in the trailer in the roar?
Wait, really?
Yeah, like the
Wait, what?
yes.
Wait, which scene?
So when they're the Godzilla and Kong kiss, like when they're looking down and Godzilla roars,
Yeah.
it's the extended roar from the trailer.
From the
From the
GVK
official
trailer?
from the 2014 official trailer. Now in the movie the roar doesn't have the like whatever the underlying like sound is in the trailer. In GVK you hear the sound.
I don't like that at all.
And now
I have enough issues with GVK sound design already. Jesus. I mean, it honestly doesn't surprise me that like they're just straight up using the sound effect from the trailer. That honestly doesn't surprise me, but like, or I guess it does a little, but it's more just
you gotta love it. You gotta love it.
Why does GVK have to be GVK again?
You know, we find a reason in every episode to complain about Godzilla versus Kong, and I love it.
And the sad part is I'm mellowing to the film. I'm like, after Jurassic World Dominion, it's like maybe GVK wasn't that terrible. Still bad, but maybe not that terrible. But like, man, we could have Wingard could have given us gold, and then he gave us GVK instead.
Wingard could never give us gold. He's never done it.
This is true, but I'm just saying, GVK itself could have been gold.
Honestly, I want Gore Verbinski to do a kaiju movie.
Maybe.
He directed The Ring, and then he also directed the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy.
You see, I've only like seen bits of those movies.
The first three are really good. They're really good.
I've heard, but again, it's kind of a bit hard for me to really say.
Fair. We got way off track of Cloverfield there.
Yeah, but to be fair, we were complaining about GVK, and that's always okay.
Yeah, it is okay. So, do you got anything else?
Yeah, I don't know. I really do like the clever monster in this film, and I hope 2.4 comes out and is actually good.
Likewise. So, with that, I think we can go ahead and wrap things up here. Before we start doing all the links and whatnot, I do want to say, for when this goes live, expect some exciting stuff. We're going to give you guys plenty to enjoy coming soon. I don't want to say too much, but we're finally doing something that I've wanted to do in the 5 years I've owned this podcast. I've always wanted to do this, and now we're finally going to, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So there's your little teaser. But overall, thank you guys. And Cloverfield is a good movie. You should check it out. It's available on streaming. I believe HBO Max has it. I think Amazon Prime does. It's on Blu-ray, DVD, 4K. iTunes probably has it. Definitely check it out. It's an outlier.
DVD always exists too.
Did I say DVD?
I think you just skipped straight to Blu-ray and 4K.
I think I said DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K.
Yeah, whatever.
I watched it on my.
How would the 4K even look? Wouldn't that just be like a upscale?
Well, it was on 35mm.
Yeah, but
it's probably just an upscale of the 35mm.
Yeah,
which is just digital put on film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. I don't think Cloverfield's really a movie that
Should be
really
in 4K.
demand 4K.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But hopefully, I will say this: you and I have had similar opinions, and I'm hoping that people were entertained enough by us that they weren't like, "Oh God, it's an echo chamber." Because like you gotta have like difference of opinions or just interesting conversations, or else it's kind of like, you guys are boring.
Oh, don't worry. We have some very differing opinions on other films
And maybe we'll see some of that coming soon. I
in
don't know.
soon time.
In soon time. So, before we overstay our welcome, let's go ahead and start telling people, the lovely folks listening, if you've listened to an hour and a half of us ramble about Cloverfield, you,
Clearly, you'd be interested in something else we'd do.
yeah. Um, let's go ahead and link ourselves. So, Rex, tell the lovely people who you are and what you are and why you are.
Well, I am Xeno, editor of this little old podcast, and now the co-host, pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I don't know what else to say. I have a YouTube channel, Rex Xeno, a Twitter handle at Rex_Xenomorph, and an Instagram, Rex_Xeno. Outside of just doing this podcast work and back in the day doing cringy old YouTube videos, I write for a site called the Tokusatsu Network as well, which is pretty cool. And yeah, you should check it out.
Awesome. So please check that out. I'm Elijah, the host of the podcast. I write for Kaiju Ramen Magazine and Kaiju Ramen Media. I've written articles on the website. I've written articles for the magazine. I just recently finished an article on some slightly obscure films in the kaiju genre that I let Rex read, and hopefully it's a good article. I tried, but I've written about Gogula, the India kaiju movie that's lost. I've written about Zebra Man, the history of Godzilla in animated form, the history of King Kong and Godzilla colliding with each other, the Daimajin trilogy, and then Daimajin canon, and briefly mentioning Great Yokai War 2 Guardians. I have worked on Kaiju Ramen Volume 1. I wrote the synopses for it. I was a graphic designer. What my brain just died. I helped, like, I gave the okay on the graphic design, and I helped the news on that article, on that first issue. I've written on the website about Minoru Kawasaki's new film, upcoming kaiju stuff for this year, and a few other things. So that's been fun, and I plan on doing more as long as they'll keep me. I used to write for GodzillaMovies.com. On there, you can find an article about Sony losing the rights to some of the Godzilla movies, a review on the Criterion Collection, Godzilla Blu-ray, and a article on the history of Gamera on home video. Besides that, I do have a YouTube channel that I don't really use. I do have some short films, as I'm a filmmaker in progress, that I could post there, but I haven't yet. Eventually I might. It's ET13 Productions if you're interested. I also have a Twitter handle at ET13 Productions where I post news about upcoming releases and all that good stuff. I have an Instagram at ET13 Productions where I have action figure photography. And then, if you look hard enough, you can find my personal socials. I don't know why you'd be interested in that. I don't really post anything of value, but, it is what it is. But if you're interested in how to support the podcast further, don't forget to rate us on iTunes. That boosts our ratings and helps us get recommended to more people just like you. If you don't have iTunes, if you don't have an Apple device, which I don't blame you. I don't. You can review us on Spotify. Give us 5 stars. I will say recently we were review bombed on iTunes, so if you could give us a 5-star rating, that would be greatly appreciated. Beyond that, you can tweet us and follow us on Twitter at KAIJU_CONVERS. If you don't have that, you can like us on Facebook or follow us on Instagram and contact us that way. If you're like me before podcasting and you don't have any social media, you can email us at kaijuconversation@gmail.com, all lowercase, all one word, you know the drill. And we'll read your reviews on air for everyone to hear. We also have a Teespring. It's got our logo. It'd be nice to get some original designs on there. Maybe one day we will. Just
These things happen.
Bear with us. If you'd like to chat with Rex and I one-on-one and hear our opinions on different subjects, or just talk to people just like you, join our Discord server. I like to always do this, looking on our Discord server right now in our general 1.0 chat, it looks like the current conversation that has gone on is about Pacific Rim Uprising.
Sparked from a little discussion of Cloverfield, of all things, as well.
Right. So, there's a lot of good people there, a lot of fun conversations. And if you'd like to understand why this recording will probably only be about 2 hours now, is because there are bloopers. There's stuff cut from these. It's not fully original and unedited. So if you want to hear those, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you can be notified anytime we upload there. We've got YouTube exclusives of, bloopers, some other little YouTube exclusives, an interview with the designer of Mechagodzilla for Ready Player One and Godzilla vs. Kong. We got stuff going on, and I need to get caught up on posting episodes because we're very far behind on those. But beyond that, a huge thanks to our editor Rex for editing these episodes, and all his stuff can be found in the description below.
Or just look up what I already mentioned earlier.
Exactly. And these should be found through Linktrees. There's Linktrees with all of these links. Those should be in the description below. So thank you guys so much for listening to us ramble and rant about Cloverfield and our lives a bit, and Godzilla vs. Kong and why it's the worst movie ever made.
The correct opinion.
Yeah, of course. And that's it. So thank you guys so much for listening. And please remember, life's too short to not talk big. Bye, guys.
Bye.